the other coast. So getting up early today. So thank you, man. And he's the CEO of a company called Liam Holdings. He's going to tell you all about it. A strategy expert. Works with startups, with Fortune 500 companies. And it's going to be a super interesting discussion. He put a lot of thought into what he wanted to present to you guys. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Teja, and you take over.
All right, no worries. So first of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me on this meeting, this conversation, this podcast, and it's truly an honor for me. I will be honest with you, I have never been in the military, but I have family who have been. I have friends who've been in the military, and also I had the honor of working with Marvel Entertainment, traveling around the world, getting to visit not only the troops throughout this country and overseas, but also the families. So I've been Fort Leavenworth, I've been to Groton Naval Base, a few other places here in the States, as well as from the Azore Islands at Air Base 4 to Incirlik Air Base when it was the tip of the spear, and through Ramstein, particularly the hospital and Spingalum and other forces, all the naval base, air bases all the way down uh, to Italy as well. So definitely an honor. And one of the things that I came up with while I was there, which Marvel then adopted, was that you don't need to wear spandex and primary colors to be a superhero. That you could wear definitely colors that blend into the countryside and other uniforms, including doctors, nurses, and that on behalf of the Marvel Universe, we want you to know that you're superheroes in our book. So, with that being said, I will share with you the agenda, a little blah, blah, blah about me, and then some things you might be familiar with in terms of terminology. But for the sense of time, I will uh, jump right into it. So, blah, blah, blah. Just most recently, I finished my time as director of talent acquisition for Brain Corners. I have a running business that's been going on for 12 plus years. And prior to that, had my own recruitment agency in Australia. I've been doing this for quite some time and also providing assistance and platforms and networks for everything from startups to big four, Fortune 10, Fortune 500. And I really look at it as if there's an organization that is plummeting and needs to be turned around, or an organization that is just starting up. Uh, that's kind of where my sweet spot is. Uh, I would say that if I ever came into a situation where everything was already set and everything was already functioning, I'm probably in the wrong place. What's not on my LinkedIn, if you look me up on LinkedIn, is that I have a BFA in acting, directing, and writing. I taught Shakespeare. I was taught Shakespeare by Sir Ian McKellen, who played Magneto in the X-Men movies. I've certified producer, director, and why I say blah 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 is that this is not the stuff that if I'm looking for a job or if I'm in the corporate world that I necessarily want to share. So anything that's like, oh, these are my hobbies, okay? At the end of the day, they're not going to hire you based on your hobbies. Maybe it's a cultural fit, but what they really want to know is who you are, where you're located, what are you doing, what have you done in the past, and why are you good? And basically, you have 10 to 15 seconds with a resume and also on your LinkedIn profile to share that information with them. So, getting into you, which is this is all about, and I've had a lot of individuals who I've interviewed and tried to place in organizations that are veterans. And I would start off with, you get to the end of your career in the military and they provide you information and you're thinking like, hey, you know what, I've learned all this stuff, should be able to get a job, and then you kind of run into a wall. Sure, people are appreciative. Hey, thank you so much for your service. Well, where does it go from there? And it's really about how are you presenting yourself, and why I bring up Sun Tzu, know thyself. Okay, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? But also you need to know who you're dealing with, particularly when you're dealing with recruiters and hiring managers. And if you can understand their mindset, then a thousand battles, a thousand victories. Okay. And the other thing is that you will find you're kind of speaking a different language when you're coming out of the military than when you're going into the corporate world. And a lot of organizations, what I've tried to do is get them to really understand and appreciate what are they getting from a veteran. You're getting someone who is highly trained, highly skilled, highly reliable. Okay. And that's something that is worth its own gold in weight. And at the same time, they don't really know how to take your experience and put it into something that they're going to fully understand. So if you wait for them to try to understand, it's not going to happen. You need to make them understand. So I will also tell you this reality check: recruiters, hiring managers, probably, hiring managers brilliant what they do, but the greater majority of recruiters are not that good. I would even say with your resume, you have to make it understandable, not only to what I call the artists in recruitment, which there are less and less, but really at the same time, what I would call the village idiot, because you need to convince that person who may not have a lot of life experience, may not have a lot of professional experience, may not really have a clue, to still look at your documentation and say, yes, this person should move on to the next step. So, speaking the same language on your resume, if it says corporal, captain, colonel, whatever was your position, the corporate world does not know how to comprehend. Okay. And they're not going to bother. They're not going to say, you know what? I wonder what this would be equivalent to in the corporate world. You need to do that. And this is also where, for example, on your resume, you may say regional supervisor of logistics, and you were a corporal or senior director of field operations. You were a colonel. Okay. Use language that they are going to understand, because if you put that kind of title and you could put your military one in parentheses, they will understand, oh, yeah, particularly if that's the role that they're looking to fill. All of a sudden, they see that title and what they're looking to fill and it's matching. They're like, oh, wow, might be what I'm looking for. Help them. You need to spoon feed the readers. Also, as I said before, you have 10 to 15 seconds to basically get a recruiter, get a hiring manager to understand that you are not only relevant, but you're really good at what you do. And it's not something subtle. You have to hit them with a baseball bat, smack them right in the face, you know, so that they get it. And you also need to show you're an impact player. And this is when I talk about showing that you're really good. So Galileo Galilei, when I was, for example, working with accountants, they know it. Mathematics, numbers, is what they deal with. So when Galileo Galilei said, "Hey, math is God's language to the universe," they say, "Yep." And numbers are the alphabet because everyone understands numbers. So between the 10 and 15 seconds and really showing that you're an impact player, understand people are reading these resumes 120 miles an hour. How are you going to get them to pick up within the first quarter of your resume all the information that's basically going to let them know, hey, I'm the person you're looking for? So here's an example. So if you see my name at the top, usually I give like a pronunciation code because everyone scrambles it. It's actually the last king of the Ostrogoths, Teja, Germanic name. But I hear Teja, I hear Teja. And Teja, for example, in India is a Bollywood villain, and I've had some interviews that started off in a very strange way. But so the kind of roles that I would be looking for would be executive leadership, chief, vice president, head, director. My professional summary. What do we want to know? How long have I been doing this? If you notice, there's words in bold. Okay, Fortune 10,500, Big Four, billions, millions. I will tell you, if you've made an impact or if you've carried a budget or if you've handled equipment that was worth something, mention it. Sure, we like thousands, okay, but we like millions a lot more and we love billions. And the thing too is that if you have a quota, and I would say in the military, you probably have like KPIs. You have to accomplish things. You have to do it in a certain amount of time. Well, you're starting off at 100%. If someone gave you more to do than your usual carry, that's over 100%. Those are the kind of things that we're looking for. If someone said, oh, I doubled my quota, double is not sexy. 200%, seeing that visually is. The other thing, as you see, like select achievements, I mentioned number one, 4 billion, 400%, 15, million. We like words like top performer. We like words like, overachiever or being recognized for overachievement. Those are the things that are really going to resonate within the first quarter of your resume. And once you've finished your resume, then you can basically copy and paste it right into your LinkedIn. Your about section is right here, from professional summary all the way down to finance and B&D as my example, but your own example. And also, when you put it into LinkedIn, you can't create the bullet points, but you can copy and paste the bullet points in. So this is my example, but this is something that you would create for yourself. And why on the resume would I have things in bold? You're going 120 miles an hour. These are visual speed bumps. They're going to slow down the reader. They're going to make people read those numbers, those words. That's what you want them to do. Otherwise, they're just blaring through there and they may not pick up stuff. So on the resume, it's really important. And you may have someone who says, oh, you know, Jordy, why did you put things in bold? It just doesn't look really, aesthetically pleasing or grammatically correct or whatever. And just the fact that that person's mentioning it, you're saying in your head, yep, even you blind bat, are even seeing that. Even though you're being nice and polite and saying, I heard this person who used to work for LinkedIn make a recommendation, but I hear what you're saying. Always be polite. Now, when you get into the meat of your resume, I've seen bullet points that go on for days. Usually people switch off, they go into autopilot once they hit about 5 to 6 bullet points. And often what I'll see is responsibilities mixed in with achievements. And sometimes the achievements that pop up are not as interesting or not as impactful as later achievements that are mentioned. So I recommend responsibilities and achievements, break it up so that when someone's reading responsibilities, they understand, hey, these are the things that I was responsible for, but these are my achievements. And try to start off, with the ones that you kind of feel are the most important. So like the 400 and the 250 here are certain segments, but the 166 is for an annual, and that's why it's at the top. So on your LinkedIn profile, if you have a picture, okay, that shows you in your military gear, I will tell you, people look at it, they appreciate it, thank you so much for your service. And then they look at you as a soldier, as opposed to, I'm looking to hire a candidate. I don't know what to do with a soldier. So you need to help them. Think about it as like reconnaissance. You're on a special mission. You're wearing camouflage for a reason, okay? You're sneaking in for a reason. You don't want to necessarily be noticed that you're a soldier, or, clandestine missions or whatever. You don't want to be seen as a soldier. You want to maybe be seen as a civilian. Same thing. Okay. We're not in such a danger zone, but it's an important zone because you want to get a job. So show yourself. And why I have this particular picture is that at an angle, you'll notice, like with a lot of movie stars, angle, a little bit of mystery. When someone has a picture of themselves straight on, it's sometimes considered a little bit more aggressive, but a little bit of an angle also on your LinkedIn profile. Usually it's off of your left shoulder in the image. And if you're leaning in towards it, just from a visual standpoint, you're leaning into the energy of your background picture. Smiling, hey, I'm a nice team player. I'm not a psychotic, individual. That's what people look at too. They look at people like, oh, that person's really serious, or oh, that person doesn't look like they'd be fun to work at. You know what? Has nothing to do with their background. It is strictly from what people are looking at from a visual perspective. So use it for your advantage. And then the other thing is that you have that banner. Some people leave it blank, but I will tell you this, it is something that you can use to set the mood. Now, I saw a guy had military fatigues in his picture. He had, him and his buddies jumping out of a helicopter into the sand dunes. It looked awesome. It looked fantastic, but not for getting a job. And so I would try to really think, okay, what is the field that I'm trying to go into? Is it technology? So that's why I brought up, I'm showing this particular view, this image, as a comparison as to, hey, show something that expresses technology or expresses, what you do. It doesn't have to be like I do, AI technology. It could be something that is a interesting image, but somehow relates to what it is that you do. And as I said before, the information that you have on your resume, you can then plug and play right into your LinkedIn profile. So, a couple last bits. You have a header, okay, or a headliner. Okay, this is that little segment of words that you put underneath your picture. I don't put down the title of the job. What I do is I say, hey, this is what I do. This is where I do it. This is how I do it. Maybe this is why I do it or why it's special. And I'll show you an example shortly. The other thing is that we want to show sort of enough information on our resume that is going to get the door to open. We don't want to throw everything at someone. We don't want to put down, hey, I achieved this and I achieved that and I achieved this. Well, you know what? Give us the very best of what you achieved. Open up the door. And why I say cookies here, for example, is whether it's life, whether it's work, whether it's a relationship, someone that we are negotiating with, an interviewer, they have a plate of cookies fresh out of the oven. And they say, Richard, Tony, Sally, I'm thirsty. And what does Sally or Richard or Tony do? Do they give a nice cold glass of milk? Or do they throw the whole cow at the interviewer or that other person? That person cannot consume or really accept the whole cow or the whole farm. But a glass of milk really serves what they're looking for. They're thirsty. And it's not a huge glass. We're not talking about 7-Eleven Big Gulp. Okay. It's a nice cold glass because you actually want them to finish it and ask for more from you before they finish their cookies. Because ultimately, you want them to start giving you cookies. Okay. I know it's a corny example, but it's really true. So don't give everything. And in that interview, listen to what the question is. Take your time. Don't rush. Leaders don't have to rush in an interview. Followers have a tendency. So take your time. And also in terms of connections, on LinkedIn, a lot of people like, I only connect with people that are in my industry or whom I know or whatever. Okay. Um, that kind of cripples what you can do. If you're at a party and there's a ballet dancer, a professional wrestler, and someone who's in that industry that you're looking to be part of, who do you not connect with? And the answer is no, you connect with all of them because you don't know who that ballerina is related to, who's their partner, who are their parents, who are their, siblings, who are their friends, who are the friends of the friends, who's their doctor. The professional wrestler might have a huge network. And the person in your industry may not have such a big network, but they're still important. So connect with everyone. The only thing I would say is that, particularly in these days, I would be careful of certain places that I would connect with. And that would be the only thing that I would not connect with. But other than that, I would connect with most anyone. And I get a lot of people who say like they want to connect with me. And one of the first things I do is like say like, okay, where are they located? Don't really care what they do. Okay, what does their network look like? If you have 500 plus, it will say 500 plus. It may even say how many connections that you have. My network is nearly 11,000, but between my first, second, and third connections, I have over a billion in terms of a network. So I highly recommend everyone connecting with me. I welcome everyone. And also at the same time, ping me, send me like, shoot me, a connection invite. He'll say, add a message. You can say, like, hey, saw you at Seven Eagle, love to connect. Absolutely. Once you're connected with me, hey, Teja, I had a question. You were talking about this, and I just wanted a little bit more clarity. Hit me up, ask me a question, you will get a response. Okay. Um, AI, ChatGPT. I will also tell you this. Um, One of the things you can do is, and this is what I did, is record myself talking about my career. What are the things I've done? What are the things I've accomplished? What are the things that I'm looking for, particularly in terms of role? Took that, I took my existing resume and I said, okay, tell me the kind of roles that would be great fits. And then I asked ChatGPT, well, with those kind of roles, is there a need? Is there a need in terms of certain things that I've created, process of procedures, standard operating procedures? And is there a need for that? And got answers. Now, the resume, I would say that I made some changes to only because ChatGPT gives it according to what it sees out there on the internet. But I would say I understand how people read resumes. And that's the thing. Like, you can have a great looking resume, but it's not spoon feeding the reader. You're relying too much on their intelligence, too much on their experience, too much on their time that they're like, oh my goodness, I got your resume and now I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes on it. Nope. You probably have anywhere between 30 and 2 minutes, 30 seconds and 2 minutes. And 2 minutes if they're really interested in what you have to say. So with that being said, that's why I didn't make all the changes that ChatGPT recommended, and I stuck with some of the things that I've seen work in the past. Um, the other thing too is that it will also tell you, hey, these are the jobs that are now available. If you ask it, hey, in the last 24 hours, what roles in this location or remote are being offered with these titles that pay at least this amount. Okay, you can do that. The other thing too is on LinkedIn, you can also use some of the filters to see, hey, this is the jobs in the last 24, hours. If you're going on pretty frequently, that's what you can do. If you haven't been on in a week, you can say, okay, let me look at the jobs in the last, week. But also at the same time, understand I see jobs that have been on for a couple of hours and there's already 500 to 1,000 people that have applied. So one of the things you can also do is look at that company. I would also say look in Glassdoor because you also want to see the reviews, but go to that company and then try to find who are the recruiters, who are the sourcers, who are like if it's a small organization, maybe it's only an HR member, but you want to send that person a connection invite. You go to the LinkedIn page, you see, that company, and then you find those individuals. You could use filters and then click those people, go to their profile, hit connect. If it only says follow, look at the more dot dot dot. Okay, that there's a drop down. It says connect. You hit connect. It says, do you want to add a message? Absolutely. And what do you want to say? Nothing about the job. You don't want to come off like, hey, I wanted to ask you about the job. No, you want to say, hey, I took a look at your profile. It's really great. I'm building out my network. I would love to connect with a dynamic, professional like yourself. Greatly appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week. And then your name. Um, don't know what just happened. Something just popped up on my screen, but hopefully I didn't get disconnected. Um, Richard Clare, can you give me a thumbs up? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, good. So, so with that being said, I also want to say in terms of interviews, okay? You come into an interview, no one's raining on your parade. You may have a great interviewer, they're not going through a good time. Relationship wise, their dog just died, you don't know what it is, but you come in and you're in a good mood. Hey, how was your day today? Great, thanks. How was yours? Oh, whatever. Okay. But you know, you're there, you're present, you're making a connection. Regardless of where this goes, you're making a connection. Hey, see if you can connect with that person on LinkedIn. Not because it's going to get you any closer to a job, but you know what? You make that connection with that person, and then uh, you have now access to their network. And going back to what I was saying before, is that when you're connecting with individuals to jobs that you applied, You don't say anything about the job, but you definitely send them a note. Once they connect with you, then what you say is, hey, John, really great. Thank you so much for connecting with me. I was taking a look at your company, Silo Industries or whatever, and it sounds like a really interesting organization. I saw that you're looking for such and such. I thought I might be a really good fit due to my experience with, keep it short, A, B, and I've attached my resume, for your perusal. Are you the person who's handling this, or would you be so kind as to steer me in the right direction to the person who is? Greatly appreciated. Have a great rest of your day. Humble pie. Okay. You do that 20 times, maybe one or two people are actually going to do something. It becomes a numbers game, but it actually is a better way to go than being part of that group of 400 to 1,000 plus individuals who've applied. Because I will tell you, most recruiters will not read more than 60 resumes if you're lucky, because they're looking for that first 4 or 5 individuals who may be a good fit, not exactly outstanding, but maybe a good fit that they think their hiring manager is looking for. And if the hiring manager says, yes, let's interview them, and that process keeps on going and they hire that person, those other, 400 and like 540 people or whatever, you know, 960 people will never get seen. And they'll be lucky if they get a message that says, thank you so much for applying. We had a lot of blah, blah, blah. Okay. But at the end of the day, if you reach out to those individuals, then you will better your chances. Um, the other thing too, and this is, I wrote a book on how to help people get a job, but one of the things that's not in it and came later is villain, victim, hero. Has everyone seen Star Wars or Marvel movie or DC? Maybe not so many DC movies, but more the Marvel movies. But if you have, think of it this way, okay? You have the villain is usually big and dominating. Okay, if you're in a meeting or an interview, this is the subconscious mood that you're setting by doing a meeting like this. Now, at the same time, if, and that's the villain, okay, if you're way down here, this is the no, I can't pay the rent. Okay, this is the no, don't kill me. Or, that moment, with Luke Skywalker when Darth Vader says, I'm your father. No. Okay, that's the villain. And that's the victim. So where you want to be is above the horizon. Okay, you want your face, your eyes to be above the horizon because this is the hero. Most people that you see in a movie, whether it's Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, um, anyone who's playing the protagonist in the film, you're mostly going to see their face like this. So think about when you're showing up in an interview or in a meeting, how are you physically showing up visually to the person who's there? If I'm conducting a meeting with people that I supervise, villain, not so good. Victim, not so good. Okay, this is better. So something to think about. Um, so with that being said, I just wanted to show you an example. So this is my opening. One of the things I'm going to do soon is put a logo in the image of the banner, but not trying too hard. A picture for my profile picture, I put a pronunciation code. Um, in California, he, him. And what do I say? Transformational global operations, strategy and people executive, culture shaper, billion plus impact, building #1 industry leaders. So without saying like a title per se, I say, what do I do and how do I do it? And throughout the rest of my background, it also talks about doing it, here in the States, the Middle East, Europe, South America, and APAC as well. So that's it in a nutshell. But open to any questions. And as I said, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Um, that's my email address, but best way to contact me and ask me questions is on LinkedIn. I'm going to see that a lot more because like most everyone, I get a ton of spam on my email, but on LinkedIn, you'll get a response, and I will give you a answer. So, any questions whatsoever?
All right, Teja, thank you so much for that. I mean, so much good information from that, and uh, so everybody knows this is being recorded, so we're going to be able to go back and review this if there's anything that you wanted to get back to. So, Teja, I want to thank you for that. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and then we're going to um, send it to the folks on the call. Just remember to put the hand up, and then we'll get to those in line. So the first question I have is, you said you were trained in theater, and that's something you don't put on your LinkedIn. The question is, why not, but the question is, what other aspects are there to Teja that are a part of your life that don't make it to your resume?
Um, Devoted father and husband. Um, I would also say I don't really put down uh, things that are hobbies of mine. Um, that has more to do about space in some ways, but also at the same time, uh, I know that people are going to mostly hire me based on what I've done. So that's really where I want people to focus on. And if you know, I will answer the non-question, which was why not put BFA in the corporate world? They look at individuals who have that background in a certain way. They also like, oh, sure, I've written, directed, and produced an international espionage feature that I'm still, working on. They're going to be wondering, well, is he going to be working on his screenplay or his film, while he's supposed to be working here? What I do on my private time is what I do on my private time, and I've learned keep it private. It's no one's business.
Awesome. So the other thing that I want to ask is, I'm going to give something that just happened to me and give you time to respond in a little bit more detail than what you did during your brief. Is that I just had a interview just an hour ago, and what I want to say isn't the fact that I got the interview. I applied for it about a month ago. I didn't hear anything back for almost a month, and so I emailed the director of HR, and within hours of that, I had their director of recruiting in my email asking to set up a time to talk. So I just like to give you a chance to respond to that in a way to go a little bit deeper, because I think that's a big piece of what a lot of us are doing is we are putting our resumes out, we're tailoring our resumes, and we're sending it to companies, and uh, maybe some of us are sending it and waiting for that email, waiting for that phone call that may never come, but that doesn't mean that it's not possible.
So you can apply and you can hear from an organization. You may not hear for a week because sometimes often is the recruiter is not just working on what we call a requisition, which is when it's an open headcount. I'm looking to find and hire a controller for this organization for the finance team, but it is one of maybe 10 or more requisitions that I'm working on. I just posted, usually on a Tuesday, and I call that the Australian rule, drunk rule. But Tuesday's the best day, and maybe by Thursday, I'll start looking at resumes. And by Monday, I'm already starting to reach out to folks. That's me, but some people take longer. Some people, what they may have done is they've already found the 4 or 5 candidates that they think are really good within those first 2 weeks. The hiring manager was like, nope. The hiring manager may have changed their mind about certain things. I've had it happen. I don't like it. I don't think it's really professional because when you go into a brief, you want to know everything first. But I had a situation where San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego were on the geographic map for a role. And then The hiring manager decided, no, I don't want anyone from San Diego. That took out like three really good candidates. So you may hear a month and a half down the road from a role that you applied from. And that's only because they may have looked at the first ones that they saw and thought, hey, maybe I got someone. And then they had to go back to the pool of individuals and find more candidates. The other thing, too, is that when you apply, you don't know, even if you're like one of the first ones to apply, is it going to be the top of the list, or does it go with who's the last person that applied that's going to be at the top of the list? So you don't control that. But what you can control is, yeah, I applied instead of sitting around until I'm blue in the face, wondering if I'm ever going to get a call. You just need to keep on applying. And you also need to follow up and say, hey, let me see if I have someone who's a connection there. Hey, by the way, um, Jane, yeah, great that you're working at this place. It's a really cool place. I saw that they had a job. Do you maybe get a referral bonus? Some organizations have a referral policy that if they refer someone who gets hired and that person stays for the first 3 months, they get something. Okay. It may be $200, it may be $500. A bigger organization may pay a couple of $1,000s. Okay. So for that individual, they may be like, yeah, you know what? I'll put my name down and that I referred you. And in organizations, usually, well, the better ones will say, if someone's been referred, you look at those people first. You want to respond to those people within 24 hours. That was something that LinkedIn had as a rule, that if someone was referred, you looked at those candidates within 24 hours of their application, because you don't want them sitting around because you're also representing the organization. And that's what a lot of recruiters, particularly external ones, don't understand. You're representing your clients, so you are the face, and how you treat candidates is also going to reflect on what that culture looks like for that organization. A little bit more of an answer. And if you want to know what the Australian drunk rule is, I'll let you know.
All right. Well, thank you. So, if there's any questions, please make sure you raise your hands. But while I look to see if there's any, could you go into that Australian rule there?
So, yeah. So in Australia, okay, when I had my recruitment agency, I had to pay for the job postings that I put on. And I wanted to get the most bang for my buck on a job posting. And what I realized in Australia is that on Monday morning, a lot of Australians may still be inebriated or hungover. So they're probably not sobering up or really seeing reality until Monday afternoon. But at Tuesday morning, they're waking up saying, I hate my job and I need to find a new job. So that's the day that I would do my posting. Now, if I get like a late, if you know, for the client and they come in late, I can still post on a Wednesday morning, but it's not going to be good as Tuesday. But Wednesday morning, people are still waking up and hating their jobs. But about Wednesday afternoon, they're starting to think, you know what, I gave it a good go for the week, and I can maybe sort of start to relax a little bit. Thursday, they're already thinking about what pub they're going to go join their friends with, what parties are going on. Thursday night, they actually might be starting to get inebriated. Friday, they're showing up physically, but not mentally. And the weekend is gone. So some people think, oh, I'm going to wait till the weekend and I'm going to apply to a lot of jobs. If I'm a smart recruiter, even LinkedIn showed this later, is that the analytics showed Tuesday is the best day to post a job. And therefore, that's the best day to be looking and seeing what are the new jobs that are up. So that's why I call it the Australian rules, because drunk rule, because seeing the culture there told me I'm not going to waste my money if I post on a Tuesday.
Awesome. All right. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions. So I'll just leave you with one last question before we end it. Who is your movie hero?
Who's my movie hero? Uh, movie hero. Um, that's a tough one. I tend to like the British actors. I would say probably Alec Guinness. And I would say Alec Guinness, not only because of the different kinds of characters that he could play, but also he was someone who treated everyone on the set regardless of if there were other actors, other individuals like the director or the writer or the producer. But whether it was on a film or in theater, he would know who the stagehands were. He would know who was doing the lights. He would know, who was running electricity. He would know who's putting up the catering. And he would never be like, "You need to call me Sir Alec." It was just call me Alec. So I think in life, you know, I love the poem by Rudyard Kipling, "If," which I think that as a model for myself and for my sons, is how I would love for them to be in life. And I think that there's a sense of humbleness and being able to work well with a multitude of different individuals from diverse backgrounds. So Alec Guinness, also known as the original Obi-Wan Kenobi.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? All right, Leslie, you can go on and ask a question.
Hey, thank you so much, Teja. I think it's Teja, right? I don't know.
Hey, but that's okay. I've heard worse.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know. Yeah, I was just making sure that then. Thank you so much for taking the time out to come talk to us. I really appreciate it. Just looking over your LinkedIn, I really like how you something that I noticed about the way you did your about on your LinkedIn was the way you sorted out your achievements. I think that really stands out, and that's something I'm gonna really steal from you if you don't mind. But just from a recruiter perspective, what is something that you were always looking for in a candidate that is not on their resume? I know candidates come with a whole lot of stuff on their resume, but what is that one thing that when you start talking to a candidate and you were like, oh man, this is who I wanna work with, or this is somebody I really want to work with. What is one thing that when they start talking and you were just like, yes, I want to work with this person, I want them on my team.
Yeah, I think personality is definitely a part of it. You want someone who seems like they would be a good collaborator, a good partner. I think Simon Sinek. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's someone who gives a lot of lectures as a guest speaker, and he talks about spending his time with the Navy SEALs with that graph that is about performance and trust, and
Mm.
that performance, while very important, you don't want to go with someone who's a great performer, but you can't perform, that you can't trust them. So there's a sense of genuineness. I love it when a candidate actually has done their homework, prepared for an interview. And I love when someone has given some thought ahead of time as to what they may be asked, and giving me an answer that I think really tries to flush out different aspects of it. You don't want to necessarily give a one-liner, but I would definitely say listen to the question and then answer it as directly as possible, and then listen. Because either that person who's running the interview will move to the next question, or they were going to ask you for more details. And you may get a sense as to what their style is, but if you listen, you will do better in terms of answering the questions that they're looking for. But you also may feel like, okay, you know what? I want this job, but they didn't ask me something that I think is really important that they should know about me. And this is where, for you, you can always say, Taya, I think that this opportunity would be a great fit for both the organization and myself, because while I was at such and such, I also did ABC. And that way you're giving a little bit of more information than what they had previously asked for, but that could be the game changer for you. So definitely listening, being prepared, how you're showing up, as a good collaborator and partner are all really, really significant. And I
Oh,
would also finish it off by saying, like, what are next steps? Also, I would say, here's an important one. Okay. So, Leslie, what are you comfortable with in terms of, or what are you looking for salary wise? Okay. Not all job postings in California, you're supposed to put down a salary, but not all job offerings do. Um, but I would say it's fair to ask. So, that's a really good question. What exactly is the salary range that's being offered? And
Mm.
also know for yourself, like, okay, what's your floor? Your floor is what is your personal overhead? What does it cost to live? Your groceries, your car, your rent, et cetera, et cetera. But also, what's a buffer that you don't feel like something's on your neck every single month in order to make the bills because stuff happens.
Right.
Okay. You have a doctor's appointment, all of a sudden, you know, something else happens, you blow a tire or whatever, you need to be prepared for those costs as well. So you don't want to give a number that is like right at the bottom. Give something with a buffer, but try to ask first, what is the salary range? And if it's in California, legally they're supposed to give it to you. And also at the same time, I would say, like, look, I can't go lower than this number, but it also depends on what exactly are the responsibilities of this role. I know that there's a job description, but I need to find out more about what is actually entailed. That way it still leaves it in negotiation and that you haven't given a hard number.
Oh wow. That was really great. Just a one follow-up question. Um, there is this thing that I have been, like applying for jobs, and sometimes I'll get like a recruiter calls me at a time when I'm probably like out shopping or doing something where I can't really talk to that recruiter at a time. What do you take from candidates that you call and you be like, "Hey, you got time to talk to me right now?" And they're like, "Hey, can I call you back?" Do you see that as a candidate that's not ready for the job, or a candidate that's like, I want to say, unprepared for that role, or do you feel like that candidate could just be making an excuse at that time, or what do you take from that?
So recruiters have multiple different personalities, okay? And you have the ones who understand life goes on and exists and this may not be the best time. And I think that your response is that if you're not prepared to take a call, say, um, hey, thank you so much for the call. Right now, I'm in the midst of something and not a great time to give 100% focus. But what is your name? What is your phone number? And what is a good time to call you back?
Okay.
Because if you also say to them, hey, can you call me back? Well, are they going to call you back? Are they not going to call you back? I mean, the one thing that drives me crazy and why, like, also in my book, I totally trash the majority of recruiters is because I can't stand the idea of ghosting anyone. And I also think that if you're a great organization, you don't start treating your employees well when you're making them that offer and hoping that they sign. Hey, here's an offer. Are you going to sign? Hopefully. Okay. No, you need to be treating all potential candidates well long before they ever become an employee, which means that you treat all candidates well. You treat them with respect. You treat them with integrity. You treat them with appreciation and as much transparency as possible. So,
Yeah. That was really, well, thank you so much. That's really gonna help me out throughout this my transition
yeah,
phase.
and also you're taking a little bit more control of the situation. Anything else? Just because I want to make sure that I answer Ryan Hicks, who's sitting there in the midst of the ocean. I want to help the guy out.
All right, thanks, Leslie. Ryan, take it away.
Mhm.
First off, I want to thank you for every bit of information that you put out. Definitely a bunch of good nuggets that you put out. So, more or less, my question kind of comes down to I wanted to proactively like start reaching out to like talent acquisition or recruiters, but there's like a hesitation to see am I being pushy? But I think you almost kind of answered it in what you were talking about before is kind of do your research, understand probably the company and the role before you reach out. But it's more or less how was that seen? If I'm like, is there a way to not seem pushy if I start reaching out?
So I reached out to a whole bunch of individuals at Netflix. One person got back to me and said, "Hey, I really appreciate, uh, your proactive approach. I know that you reached out to a few folks. I wanted to talk with you. Great. I had another person who basically said I had carpet bombed them and that it wasn't professional. Now, the person who said it was great, a little bit of a longer career than the person who said I was carpet bombing. Um, it didn't go anywhere, and I kind of like thankful that didn't, but maybe culture's changed over there. Uh, but I think that sometimes you don't get the job because it wasn't the right job for you. You know, whether you're a religious person or not, maybe God's plan was not that job. But I look at as if someone is really worth their weight in sand, you know what? You're going to appreciate someone who's progressive, and proactive, because that's the person who's a go-getter. They're showing you right there, hey, I'm a go-getter. I'm just not going to like apply and wait. I want to try to get my foot in the door here. And if you think that's overly aggressive, okay, you know what? Maybe it's not a fit, but maybe you're the person who looks at it and says, hey, I appreciate that. Thanks for putting yourself on my radar. Does that help, Brian?
It definitely does, because I got to thinking about about 4 years ago, I got reached out with recruiters, but now that I'm in the position of I'm getting ready to transfer, it's like crickets. So I kind of feel like I should be able to flip the script at this point, and me start reaching out to them instead of waiting on somebody to reach out to me.
I think it's really important that we understand that we constantly need to evolve. We need to be adaptable. I think that if you see yourself as like a certain profession, well, where's that profession going? Okay, I can tell you in talent acquisition, I've already, told my team over at Brain Corners when I was there, in the next 5 years, AI is going to change the landscape. Before I left, I said it's probably 2 years or less. So anyone who's going to get ahead of AI, understand AI, know how to use AI, also understands the compromises or even dangers with AI, is going to be in a far better place than someone who's saying, hey, I'm cozy where I am, I'm comfortable where I am, I'm doing what I'm doing. You know what? Unfortunately, in the next 5 years, you may become extinct. And then you're in the race to readapt yourself if you're capable of and reemerge, as your new self. But you need to really do it now. You need to look at what are you doing? How do you evolve? How do you stay, at the level of where the market is going, so that you are relevant 100% as much as possible.
Fair enough. And thank you very much for that as well.
No worries.
All right, Teja, thank you so much for your time with us today. I want to respect your time and give it back to you as we're about to break for lunch here at the top of the hour. Thank you for bringing your point of view to the discussion today. And I know that plenty of people are going to be taking note for a lot of what you brought to us today. Thank you very much. Any last comments with us before you take off for the day?
Yeah, I would say definitely appreciate everything that all of you have done. I think that I would love to hear down the road that you landed that dream job that you were looking for. I highly recommend connecting with me. It will definitely widen your own network, but also at the same time, feel free to hit me up with any questions that you have, and I will give you as quickly as possible an answer. And at the same time, as I was talking about evolution and adapting, we think about intelligence as being maybe this set thing. It's there's a great book called Mindset by Dr. Dweck. Excuse me.
$22.
Okay, maybe we've got enough hot mic. Maybe it's back on those tires again from the previous conversation. But I'll just say this: you can think about what intelligence you want, what intelligence you need, or what intelligence you could have, which will be a constant thing to strive for in your life. Because face it, and this is not an insult, you can be completely more intelligent tomorrow than you are today. And if you're constantly adapting, constantly evolving, you will always be becoming a better version of yourself. And that will also make you a better candidate and a better employee and a better person overall. So don't stay in the status quo. Push the envelope. So thank you very much. I greatly appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you very much, Teja. Well, that's going to be it for now, team. We're going to be back.